Welcome to Conversations with Champions. My name is Johnny Randolph. I am a speaker, trainer, a podcaster. I am a renowned Toastmaster. And as you can see, we have a full house tonight. I'm going to start off by introducing my first co-host. We're going to go ladies first, beautiful before bronze. And we're going to start off with our first co-host. She is an immediate past district director for District 40. She is a technologist. She's a data scientist. She is the wonderful Miss Luvenia Boyer. Say hello to the people, Miss Luvenia Boyer.
Hi, everybody.
So, all right. And my next co-host, he is a past district director. He is a past program quality director. He's a public servant and a speaker as well. The always distinguished Mr. Gene Bailey. How you doing today, Gene? Say hello to the people, sir.
Hello, everyone. Doing great today.
Good stuff. Now, the premise of our show is normally we will watch a Toastmasters International Speech Contest. But here at Conversations with Champions, we are focused on all things as it pertains to public speaking and communication. We're going to deviate from that standard formula and we're going to look at a different type of speech. This time we're going to look at a speech by one of my favorite speakers. He is an entrepreneur. He is a trainer. He is a keynote speaker, the coach's tech guy, Mr. Michael Pope. How you doing tonight, sir?
How you doing, Johnny? Gene, Luvenia, good to see you.
Good stuff. Awesome. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at one of Michael's speeches. We're going to react to it. And then when it is concluded, we're going to pick his brain a little bit to get a look at the glimpse behind all the genius. So with that being said, let's get started.
Michael. Good job. When I was 8 years old, unthinkable happened. My grandpa Joe got sick, and they had to amputate his legs below the knee. They took grandpa's legs away, and they gave him two heavy, uncomfortable prosthetic legs. Now, because of the pain of the prosthetics, grandpa spent the majority of his day crawling on his knees. Now, that alone would have kept most people in the bed, but not Grandpa Joe.
Okay.
His wife had a stroke, and she was completely paralyzed on the left side of her body. And Grandpa Joe would slowly crawl over to Grandma, and he would patiently feed and care for her, always with a smile on his face. And I was an 8-year-old watching this. I thought, Grandpa, what are you doing? Stay in bed. Let the nurses care for her. It didn't make sense to me. But Grandpa loved serving others. On nice days, he would crawl over to his chair, and he would strap on those two heavy prosthetic leg, and I would watch him go from about 4'8.5" to 6 feet tall in a matter of minutes.
Okay.
And to me, that was magical. And he would walk around the community, and we would look for ways to serve others, like checking the mail and delivering newspapers for someone sick and shut in. Well, one day, Grandpa Joe was chatting with a neighbor about his lawn. Mike, run up to the house and get the mower, and then come back and cut this grass. After I had finished cutting the grass, the neighbor walked up to me and said, "Little Mike, your grandfather is teaching you well." Then he gave me $5. That was the kind of man my Grandpa Joe was. Several years later, when I was 19 years old and in college, my grandpa made me so proud when he received this medal, the Thomas Jefferson Servant Leadership Award.
Okay.
And I saw it and I thought, wow, why am I not serving more? What's my excuse? And Grandpa Joe looked at me and he said, Mike, you have to make serving others part of who you are. Now, at 19, I didn't get it. But a year later, I found myself sitting on the front row of my Grandpa Joe's funeral, watching person after person come up and share about how Grandpa had served them. And I heard words like caring, patient, and servant leader. And then in the back of my mind, I heard my grandpa's words, Mike, you have to make serving others part of who you are. And I made a decision that day. I said, I will serve others. I will serve others. I will serve others. And I believe that I'm doing that. In 2020, I was recognized as one of the volunteers of the year at my company.
Nice.
In 2021, I received the Maxwell DNA Award, and I was asked to serve on faculty.
Okay. I like
Thanks to Grandpa Joe, serving others is now part of who I am. Maxwell leaders, let's go out and make
Get y'all
serving
hitting
part of who
woo
you are.
today.
Thank you.
All right.
So many memories. Wow.
Wow.
Well, good job, Michael. That was awesome, man.
Thank you. Thank you. It definitely brought back some serious memories.
Okay, well, we're going to pick your brain on anything that our co-hosts want to ask you. So I am actually going to start. Michael, I know you are a speaker. You can talk very well. And I know that you are a keynote speaker as well. You're used to giving maybe hour and a half speeches, longer training. This speech was relatively short. I think I clocked it at about 3 hours and 15 minutes. 3 minutes?
An hour.
I said 3. I'm sorry. I said hours, right? Nope, I'm gonna keep it real.
My head is going, but
I was like, where was I? The whole time.
So 3 minutes. All right. So you had 3 minutes. Take me through your process of how you distinguish between keynote and a speech for this short amount of time, because I'm pretty sure there's more you could have said, there's more you may have wanted to say. So what's your process for distinguishing between longer keynotes and something that's shorter like this?
Absolutely, great question. So the target for this particular speech on the Maxwell stage was a max of 3 minutes, similar to Toastmasters, right? Max of 3 minutes, no grace period. So I had to keep it under 3, and I'll tell you, getting a story down to 3 minutes is very tough.
I bet.
It's actually easier to do a 45-minute talk than it is to do a 3-minute talk. Right? It's easier to do a 5 to 7 minute talk than it is to do a 3-minute talk, because it's like at 3 minutes, you really only have time for one major point, so you really have to keep it concise. And so there's a lot that I could have covered in that talk, and I've delivered it multiple times in different arenas, and I've given various information. So as an example, I talked about how in 2020 I won the Volunteer of the Year. Well, in 2019 I was recognized as Toastmaster of the Year. I would have added that, however, in my 3 minutes I couldn't say that point. So I had to be very selective on what I said for my audience.
Okay. Yeah. 3 minutes. We're all Toastmasters here and we all love to talk, and we could all talk for a long time. So I was really intrigued by the short length of time you were able to be succinct and still get your point across in that short period of time.
I don't know if this is a question or more of a comment, but it was really good to hear that story, because when you told the story and then I reflect about my interactions with you, I could actually see that in you, and it actually put a lot of things into perspective. But I loved how I think when I listened to your speech, you really tied in character to being able to be successful and speaking well. And when you targeted your audience, what led you to put those two together?
I think the target audience was Maxwell leadership, so a lot of coaches, speakers, trainers, and that community is all about adding value. John Maxwell talks about adding value a whole lot. And so it was a perfect tie-in for what I do as far as adding value, serving others, and all of that, to adding value. So that kind of helped me to tie in that particular topic. So I was able to find the right story to match that audience.
Oh, truly inspiring, Michael. Inspiring. I've heard it once. I think heard it once before. I have a question for you. And I think you helped me answer it. It's only a 3-minute talk that you have. But at the beginning, when you're sharing about the amputation of your grandfather, now when you give it at those longer, when you have a little bit more time, do you emphasize some of the pauses in there at the beginning? I'm just curious.
I do, and I'll do more of a crawling motion. So in that video, I think I did this to represent crawling. And since then, if I tell it again, I'm doing this to crawl if it's in a virtual or even if it's on stage, right? I'm doing this so they can kind of get a feel for the crawling. And I will, if I have more time, add more details too. Because a lot of people want to know, okay, why was his legs amputated? And so I'll make sure that I'll answer that reason. And he had diabetes, which is why diabetes, poor circulation, and his legs were amputated.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes if I have more time, I'll talk about how he used to, with no legs, he would drive neighbors around, the doctor's appointments and all of that.
Wow.
Yeah, and then sometimes I'll spend more time reading what's on the coin. This is what the front of the coin looks like. The Thomas Jefferson Servant Leadership Award, and in the back of it, it says, in recognition of outstanding public service. And I keep this coin on my desk as a reminder for me to remember to think about how can I add value to others, right? How can I serve people today?
So, Michael, how often did you practice in preparation for the speech?
Whew, a lot.
Okay.
I literally had, obviously, I used various Toastmaster clubs to practice the speech the same way you would an international speech contest. In addition to that, I had the speech memorized and internalized.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning I could easily take parts off or add parts depending on how I needed to deliver it for the audience. And so that really helped me out, helped me feel flexible.
Just go ahead.
Because I
No,
knew the material, I wasn't nervous.
Okay. I want to just really distinguish for us the difference between memorize and internalize for people who may not know.
Absolutely. So when you memorize something, you know it word for word in an exact order. Memorization is good at first. However, when you internalize it, you know it so well that you can literally go from the back to the front. And you can cut parts off, like you know what parts you can cut off or how you can add something to it and not really affect your time if you really have it internalized.
And I know since you practice a lot, I'm pretty sure you practice at home, but this seemed like it was a big audience there.
There's a little over 2,000 people.
Oh, so it was a big audience there. So I'm interested in how being in front of such a large audience influenced your performance as opposed to like your at-home practice or, practicing in smaller venues.
For me, the size of the audience really doesn't matter. Thankfully, Toastmasters, so when I joined Toastmasters, I was terrified of public speaking. Toastmasters helped me overcome that. And through Toastmasters, I've learned, right, it's not about me, it's about the audience. So because I'm not worried about what am I going to say and all of that, I'm able to focus and really show love to the audience. So the size of the audience really doesn't matter. I mean, and I know that audience wants me to succeed anyway, right? Anytime you're speaking to an audience, the audience wants you to succeed. They want you to do a good job.
Mm-hmm.
The speech contest may be slightly different, right? Your competitors, but everybody else wants you to do a great job because they're there. They want to be entertained. They want to be informed, inspired, all of that, right? So they're rooting for you.
Yeah, they want you to add value to their time. Absolutely.
Right.
Yes. Michael hit the nail on the head. One of the quotes of John Maxwell comes to mind. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Michael, when you're presenting and you do such a magnificent job, what's in your mindset when you're presenting to make that connection with your audience, to show care? What's going through your mind? Give us a glimpse.
Great question, Gene. So one of the things I learned from one of my mentors, Joseph McClendon III, he taught me a before, during, and after process. And so what I do before is before I even get on stage, obviously, you got to know your content, right? That's given. But before I get on stage, if I have an opportunity to look out at the audience, I'm looking at my audience and I'm sending love to them, right? I'm literally looking at different people in the eye and saying, I love you. I love you. I'm looking forward to adding value to you, right? So I'm speaking positive things to the audience in my mind, to them. And then, of course, when I'm the doing part, when I'm on stage, I'm giving them my all. My goal is to add as much value as possible with whatever I'm delivering, whether it's a 3-minute talk, whether it's a hour and a half talk, is to be giving value to them. So I'm doing my best to give them value to make sure they hear what they're supposed to hear. And then afterwards, Joseph taught me the importance of celebrating myself. So I make sure that that I'm patting myself on the back. I'm saying, Michael, you did an amazing job, right? Giving myself those accolades and not necessarily waiting for the crowd to give them to me or someone else. I have to celebrate myself first. Yeah. So
Okay, I
that's my
like it.
process, and it makes it so easy.
But yeah, just to piggyback off of that, because you gave a speech that it did touch upon some very personal stuff in your life. You know, you told about your grandpa, and you brought up his physical ailments, as well as just a place in your life where you went from not really taking something serious to making a decision. And I know when people get up to speak, it's easy to talk about factual stuff, especially stuff that comes out of a textbook. But when you're talking about being vulnerable and really standing in front of thousands of people that you don't know, what what is some of the tricks that you use or things you would recommend for people who find themselves needing to be vulnerable but just a little fearful of what that response is going to be?
Yeah. So for one is it's not about me, it's about the audience, right? And so if I know that my message, this story can help inspire someone else, impact them, then I owe it to them to do my best to share that story. Even if I'm going to feel a little uncomfortable, I know it can benefit my audience. And so I do my best there. But I tell you, I owe a lot of it to Toastmasters. So one of the things with my grandfather's story, when I showed up at his funeral, I was 20 years old in college, sitting on the front row, and they had people coming up and they said, hey, they had several people come up and speak about my grandfather, how he had impacted their lives. And I remember sitting there, and one of my cousins leaned over and said, hey, little Mike, are you going to go up and talk about Grandpa Joe? And in my heart, I really wanted to, but I let fear keep me paralyzed because I was terrified of public speaking. So I would not go up there and share. So now, anytime I get to talk about my grandfather, I love to do it. Thanks, because Toastmasters helped me overcome that fear. And so anytime, so that's why I'm constantly talking about him and talking about other stories, because it's not about me. It's about the impact that our words can have on other people.
What are some other tips or tricks that you use to make a connection with an audience whenever you are giving any sort of presentation?
Yeah. So one thing that I've learned is, especially if I'm doing like a keynote somewhere, is to get there early enough where I can interact with the crowd.
Okay.
It's something powerful about when a speaker can go and shake hands with people, introduce themselves, even if they don't know you're the speaker, right? You're just one of them, just interacting with them. And then when you get up there to speak, if you can mention something, hey, I was talking with Johnny about this, and he's got this example, right? Anything you can do to kind of personalize it for your audience, I mean, it's they love it. And I'll give you an example. So I had an opportunity to go to Jamaica for a keynote back in
Nice.
December. Beautiful time to be in Jamaica. As soon as I told my wife about it, she said, "Okay, I'm going too." Right? So it's like, so we both,
Absolutely. Yeah, you weren't getting away with that one.
yeah. She was like, "If I have to, I'll give you a talk just so I can go there." Right?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I already knew that.
Yeah. But one of the things I did to customize my presentation for them is that I had pictures representing their culture, right? So I learned a little thing about Jamaica prior to going there, and I made sure that I had specific content for that audience. So that way they knew that okay, he didn't give this same talk in Ohio because it just wouldn't have related. So I think that's very important. Even if it's the same stories, tailoring it to your audience is so important.
Share a little bit about your choices in how to utilize your stage, because I know a lot of times when people are up on a stage, kind of like, even though they're not moving, they're wobbling, or just how people hold their hands, just some of the things you think about as you're up on the stage and how to control that stage.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've learned is that you don't you want to move on purpose, right? I see some
Yeah,
people like I remember
absolutely.
seeing this one speaker back in October. I was at an event and she was literally walking from the left of the stage to the right of the stage, like doing one of these type of numbers. And I was like, whoa, like that was very distracting. You don't want to do that type of movement. And so what I do is I look at how people do, like when you think about a TED talk. In a TED talk, they have a circle and they've got very limited amount of space. And so they're typically staying still, or they'll look over here to the audience, in the center, over the side. And I try to do that as much as possible. And then if I need to move to demonstrate a point, like I did with my grandfather's putting on his prosthetic legs, then I'll move to the side or something there. But I think as long as you're looking at the audience, trying to maintain eye contact with different people in a room, I think everybody feels like they've been seen and you can kind of connect with them a little bit better.
So to piggyback on Luvenia, you're talking about stage movement and things, and you talked about internalizing your speech, right? So how do you prepare for your gestures? Are they pre-planned, or do you just allow yourself to be in the moment? Or is there maybe a combination of both of them?
I think for me, it's a combination of both.
Okay.
But there's some gestures that I'm going to always do. So as an example, in that video, when I talked about my grandfather going from put on his prosthetic legs and going from about 4'8" to 6 feet tall, right? That's a gesture that I can always do.
Mhm.
And when I talked about the neighbor giving me the $5, I mean, I put up the 5. So you can do, there's some gestures you're going to have memorized, but then there's other ones where you may just flow with the audience based on what the audience is doing, or based on, you may be calling back to something that people did earlier, right? There was some movement that got everybody laughing, and you might do a similar movement type of thing.
Okay. All right.
So that's why
Okay.
you want to be able to have your content internalized so that way you can be flexible. I'll tell you another example. So when I was in Jamaica, they didn't. I was the first in-person speaker, and they wouldn't let me do a tech checkup, even though I was there like an hour and a half before. But they weren't ready, right? They were on Jamaican time. They weren't ready. So when I get up to speak, they didn't have my slides working. They thought it was going to work. It wouldn't work. My slides didn't start working until 15 minutes into the presentation. And I had a lot of slides. But however, because I knew my content,
Right.
it flowed really well. And then as soon as they were able to get the slides up, I was able to transition to the slides without missing a beat. So no one really knew that I needed those slides because I had my content so well internalized that I knew I could flow with or without the slides.
Preparation. Yes, sir. It is a key.
Yes, Michael, talking about technical and preparation. Which types of microphones do you prefer? I know for me, I like the lavalier lapel if I have an opportunity to, because I like to use my hands sometimes, lots of times in the presentations. Oh, by the way, love that picture back there behind you. We have that as well. Love it, love it, love it. So, wanted to find out, and then what kinds of tips can you give from the handheld mic to the lavalier or the lapel mics?
So I love handheld actually, even though it takes some of your hands away, right? But anytime you can have a handheld, you can adjust your volume easily with the handheld mic. Versus like if I need to go low, this mic isn't working, but if I need to go low and I've got a handheld and I just take it away from me, or if I need to like make it loud sound, I will bring it closer. So this gives you that flexibility. Whereas sometimes I'm wearing like either the lavalier, or the ear mic, and you really can't adjust the sound on those other than like using your hand to block it or something. So I definitely prefer that. So whenever I'm practicing for a talk, because sometimes you don't have any control of what your event planner is going to give you. They may say, "Oh, we have ear mics," but you may show up and the ear mics aren't working and they just have handhelds, right? You just never know. So I always practice my content with the handheld mic, and I'll practice switching hands as needed, especially if I have other props. So you want to practice and be comfortable with it as much as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Lavinia, did you have any other questions?
Well, when you mentioned using props, what is your process in deciding if you should use it for your particular speech, or even what props to choose to use that's effective?
Yeah, great question. So when it comes to props, for me, I always ask, will it add value or will it be a distraction? Right? There are some props where it may be a distraction, so it can be, you got to be cautious. Even me using this coin, This coin is really too small to use on a prop on a big stage because most people can't see it. However, because it's the actual coin he won and what he received, it kind of makes sense to use it. And I just have to hope that that the camera is going to zoom in on it, or people really get the gist of it, even if they can't see it. So it's risky to use something like this. I wouldn't use a lot of small things because the audience just wouldn't be able to see it, and so it's more of a distraction. Mm-hmm. And the same with like a PowerPoint or any type of presentation, you always have to ask, hey, is it going to add value, or is it going to be a distraction? Right? Do I want them reading my slides, or do I want them looking at me? And so you just want to be comfortable with that. And with me, I'm very comfortable with technology, so I know how to black out the screen if I need to, if I'm using a PowerPoint to get everybody to focus back on me and handle those technical details.
Okay.
Just
I wanted to. Oh, go ahead. No, please go ahead, Luvenia. Go ahead.
Well, you spoke about the camera and having a camera on you when you're speaking. What kind of conversations are you having with the camera people prior to your speech, or are you just
very good question? Yes, that's very important, right? So Luvenia asked, what kind of conversation are you having with the camera people? I'll tell you, if you go speak anywhere, there's two groups of people you really want to know: the photographers and the videographers. Also the tech people. So meet those people, because they can make you look amazing, or they can make you look really
not
bad.
so amazing, right? We'll be kind.
Yeah, right. It's nothing worse than getting the event pictures back and you're not able to find a good picture of yourself. It's like, man, I was on stage for an hour, you didn't get a good shot of me, right? But as well as make those connections. So I'm really big, like Gene's been to the Maxwell Leadership Conference. I know quite a few of those photographers, right? I've talked to those people, had real conversations with them. And so what I'll do is, if I know that I'm going to be speaking and saying something, I may let them know kind of what I'm going to be doing, right? Like at the beginning of my presentation, I'm going to be on the right side of the stage most of the time. And you try to get this type of angle for me. And one of the things that one of my coaches, so Dr. Kareem Ellis, he's going to be the keynote speaker at our District 40 conference in Lexington. And one of the things he taught me is that whenever I go to a venue to speak, think about the footage that you want to get. Right. So if you've got a plan of, hey, I would love to get shots of the crowd from this angle or that angle, right? Just have that in mind. So that way when you're talking to people, you can ask them, hey, are you going to have some photographers on this side of the screen when I'm up here? And just have those conversations with them. Because if not, they don't know, right? They're good at taking pictures. They may miss key points. Like me holding up my coin, they may or may not get that. And I actually got some really good pictures from the Maxwell team of me holding my coin.
Okay.
But it starts with those conversations. If you can. Sometimes you can't get to those people, but if you can, at a minimum, speak to them, be nice to them, right? You should be nice to everybody anyway. So it's easy for me. But yeah, get to know those people, because like I said, they can make you look really great. And they can take extra pictures of you too when you're interacting with the crowd afterwards and things. And you want to get those professional shots versus the cell phone shots. They'll help you out.
You ever slide them, a little, maybe bring them some cookies or some brownies or,
I've given 2 of them books before.
Okay.
Right. And all those are just kind words and all that. Right. Had lunch with some of them. And so you can, right. Because they're real relationships. They're nice.
Yeah, develop relationships. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Michael, I want to ask something. You talked about earlier when you were in Jamaica, you said that PowerPoint presentation, it didn't work when you first started off. How do you handle when things don't go as you anticipated? Do you pause? Do you let the audience know? Do you go on and act like nothing has happened? Or is it kind of a case-by-case basis? What's your strategy?
Case by case. However, I do my best to acknowledge it. So when I was in Jamaica, I acknowledged the issue, right? Because everybody kind of could tell something was going on with the slides. So I made it a point, and I said, okay, they're going to figure that out, but I'm going to go ahead with my presentation. And so I went through the motion, right? Started off with a story and all of that, and it was great because I got really good feedback from it, and a lot of like the person who, like the event host and the other people who were trying to figure it out, they were thankful that I was able to flow with my speech. Because some people would have been like, okay, I'm not gonna start. We gotta take a break. And that would have thrown everything else off. And so thankfully I knew my content. I was able just to flow. And then once they got it, I was like, okay, well, thank you. I'll click. Right. And just have it flow without seeming nervous.
Okay. Okay. Gene, what about you, sir? You got any questions for Michael?
Well, I have a thank you because, Michael, you shared with me that this coin may be just a little bit too small for my prop tomorrow night. But I use it. It's a Toastmasters coin. I use it in a particular presentation I have tomorrow night. So I will see if I can find a bigger coin.
But it still can work though, right? So as long as they know they can't read it, you read it to them. So you'll say, hey, it says this type of thing.
Gotcha.
Right.
And thank you, Luvenia. That's a question I wanted to ask Michael as well about the photographers and the videographers, the conversation that you need to have ahead of time, because I'm kind of in that stage learning that process now as we go. So,
and I'll tell you also something about those people. I mean, those the photographers and things. A lot of times they're working events. So especially if you're trying to get paid to speak, they're probably working events where people are paying them to take pictures or take videos and all that. So they may know of some upcoming events, right? Even if you're not asking them, hey, do you know somebody who would hire me to speak? But you can just ask them, hey, so what's where are you headed to next, right? And just get a feel for some of the events they go to, and they may say, hey, I'm going to be in this, I'm going to be in DC, 2 months from now, whatever. You're like, really? Okay, which event? Because it might be an opportunity for you. You just never know.
Yeah. And you should treat everybody good, right? You never know what
absolutely.
opportunities are out there, right? If you, you put good energy into the universe, I'm a firm believer it will come back to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Luvenia, did you have any questions?
Not any questions, but I love how you really emphasize the importance of the networking piece of it as well, especially when you are looking at leadership, even in addition with speaking. So that's a good reminder.
Okay.
Yeah. It's important, right? I mean, like even like you, Luvenia, I know you've asked me to serve in different areas for you over the years, and it made it easier, right? Because we already had a connection, and I've seen you serve, so it was an easy yes. And the same for Gene. I mean, so it's like but it's all starts with the networking.
I'm just gonna let you know something, Michael. It didn't matter if you said no. She was gonna get you sooner or later. It was going to be some sort of way. She just let you think that you were saying yes on the first time. It was going to happen.
Yes, right?
Mr. Bailey, we're gonna give the last question over to you, sir. You have one more question for Michael?
The last one I have, Mike, what has been your top 2 key attributes that's helped you to monetize your talks?
All right. So number 1, Gene, as far as monetizing, is asking. You'd be amazed, right? It's you look at people who get paid versus people who don't, and the biggest thing is some people ask and some people don't. So that would be number 1, is you have to ask for the opportunity to get paid to speak. Even because I remember I had a mindset one time that nonprofits didn't pay, but I had a nonprofit reach out to me and pay me good money to speak for them. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So even nonprofits have money, right? So number 1 would be ask. Number 2 is make sure that you is have all your assets together, so that if someone comes to you and someone says, hey, Gene, we would love for you to be our speaker. Can you send us over some details as soon as possible? Right? It's your job to have everything in place so you can easily say, okay, you find out what their theme is and you're able to send over a proposal. Here's a proposal for my talk. Right, here's my speaker one sheet, or here's links to videos, or whatever you're giving, but have that content ready so that way you're not having to try to figure that out last minute. You can quickly turn around. I mean, I've been able to do that for several proposals, and they were amazed at how I was able to get it to them the same day. I'm like, I have my content together.
So it's like almost internalizing your process.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like you do. I got you. Gotcha. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
This was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To everyone, Gene, Luvenia, Michael, for donating your time. Michael, for giving us this amazing experience and sharing your experience and your successes with you, not just in your public speaking, but your leadership style and just your overall journey. I really and sincerely appreciate that. I'm going to turn to you, Luvenia. Will you let the people know where they can find you?
Anywhere and everywhere.
Well, we'll go to you, Gene. Where can the people find you?
Okay. Everywhere and everywhere part 2. No, you can reach me at Gene Bailey, Bailey and Associates, at Align, and we're coming soon with the website, and we will post that as soon as we have that ready.
Awesome, that's great. Mr. Michael Pope, the Coach's Tech Guy. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, so on social media, Michael J. Pope Jr. on all social media platforms. And then my website is michaelpopetraining.com.
Okay. And we want you out there to hit that subscribe button and that like button so the people can know where we're going to win and where we drop all of this great content. If you want to find me on social media, you can find me at the Randolph Speaker Bureau, or you can email me at randolphspeakers@gmail.com, or you can visit my website, and that's randolphspeakers.com. Again, I want to thank my fabulous co-host, Mr. Gene Bailey, for coming through. Great job, sir. Miss Luvenia Boyer for coming through. And always the talented Mr. Michael Paul. All right. And as I always like to conclude any message or meeting or event that I'm involved in, please remember to be your best, to be inspired, to be great. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.